Every night, a little before 7 o'clock, I turn on the kitchen light, take a small pot from the cupboard, and prepare, with my own hands, my dinner. I am 91 years old. I still cut the vegetables slowly, heat the beans, wash my plate, and put away the leftovers on my own, without hurry and without help. Then I walk to the back door to check whether the gate is locked. Without anyone holding my arm, without having to call my children, without turning every simple task into an emergency operation. I confess with a smile that sometimes I forget where I left my glasses, and I almost always discover they were right there, on my own head, the whole time. Because at 91, my dear, dignity also includes learning to laugh at oneself with tenderness. But there was a time, and I must confess this to you right at the start, when I thought I would lose all of this. My legs began to fail. My appetite decreased. I would wake up tired and needed to use both hands to rise from the chair. Perhaps you know this fear up close, and that's why I ask you, before we begin, tell me in the comments what city, state, or country you are watching me from, how old you are, and what food usually is part of your dinner, because I read these answers with my heart to understand the conversations our community most needs to have. Perhaps you recognize this fear in your own body. You grip the handrail more tightly than you used to. You sit on the edge of the bed for a few seconds, waiting for the body to obey before you stand. You wake 2 or 3 times during the night to go to the bathroom, and in the dark of the hallway, you think to yourself, for how many more years will I be able to do this on my own? Perhaps your daughter has already asked, in that overly careful voice, whether it's still safe for you to live without company, and perhaps you laughed, changed the subject, and hid how much that question hurt inside. I did exactly that, so I understand. But before anything, let me tell you where what I'm going to share today comes from, with all the honesty my years have taught me. This is a conversation inspired by lived experience, by the ancient wisdom of the Buddhist tradition that shaped my life, and by the lessons only time teaches. And it is precisely out of respect for you that I must make clear, however valuable this wisdom may be, it walks side by side with your doctor's care, and never in its place. There is no miraculous food on this plate, no recipe capable of stopping aging, and whoever promises you that does not respect you. What there is a simple and honest way of offering the body the material to preserve the muscles, the energy, the balance, and the recovery during the night. If you have diabetes, a kidney problem, or take continuous medications, take everything you learn here into a conversation with the one who follows your case. And I need to tell you something right away, so that you'll stay with me until the very end of this video, without skipping any part. The food was only one part of my change. The element that truly kept me on my feet, the one that truly saved me, did not fit inside the pot. Keep that idea well in your heart, because we will return to it at the end, and it is the one that gives meaning to everything. Today I'm going to show you the 5 parts of my evening dinner, one at a time, calmly. I'll explain what each one offers the body, how I organize the portions, which simpler and more economical alternatives you can use, and which cautions must be respected, always with honesty. After the 5 parts, I'm going to tell you about a 6th thing, the one that isn't on the plate, but without which none of this would have worked. So go ahead and leave your like, subscribe to the channel, share this video with someone you love who also dines alone, and comment the word independence down below so I know you're here with me on this journey. Let's begin right now by understanding what really happens to your muscles while you sleep, and the first part of my plate. Before I show you the first part of my plate, let me tell you how this whole story began, because it was a scare that opened my eyes. My concern was born on a cold winter night. I had finished dinner and went to the kitchen to bring in a cup. The floor was icy, and the hallway light cast a long shadow near the table. When I turned my body, my right leg simply did not follow me. I didn't quite fall completely. I managed to grab the edge of the sink, but the cup slipped from my hands, hit the floor, and broke into 3 pieces. And I stayed there, leaning on my arms, breathing fast. You see, it wasn't the scare of the broken cup that frightened me. It was the realization, cold as that floor, that for a few seconds my legs had not been trustworthy. My daughter arrived shortly after, found the pieces hidden inside a bag, and noticed I was trying to disguise what had happened. She looked at me and asked, in a tight voice, "Dad, can you still stay here on your own?" And on the table was the key to my house. That night I was not afraid of dying. I was afraid of staying alive without being able to decide how to live. It was then that I began to observe my eating with more honesty, and what I saw shamed me a little. I told myself I ate little because the elderly need less food, but that was a comfortable lie. The truth is that many of my dinners were just a coffee with bread, a cracker, or a thin soup, almost without any protein. My stomach would feel full for a few minutes, but my body received very little material to conserve the muscles. And here I must teach you an image that changed my understanding forever. Think of your muscles as a house that goes through small repairs every night. During the day, walking, standing, carrying the bags, and even climbing a step cause small natural wear, like the wear of a lived-in house. Then, while you rest and sleep, a silent repair crew goes into action. Protein provides part of the bricks of that repair. Vitamins and minerals are like the workers who raise the structure. The energy from food keeps the worksite running. And the day's movement is what shows the crew which rooms are still used and need to be preserved. If the material doesn't arrive, the crew tries to improvise, and as the months pass, that house keeps losing its firmness little by little, without fanfare. That's why I stopped looking for a magic food and built, instead, a structure for my dinner. And the first part of my plate, the most important, is a clear source of protein. On some nights, I eat 2 eggs scrambled with tomato and fresh herbs. On others, I prepare a bit of shredded chicken, a fish, a sardine, or a small portion of tender meat. And when I want to economize, which is almost always, I use beans, lentils, or peas, often combined with an egg. Because protein, my dear, isn't only for the young who go to the gym. After 60, it becomes even more important because the body already responds less efficiently to small amounts and needs a bit more care. This doesn't mean filling the plate with meat, not at all. It means only avoiding that dinner made up solely of bread, crackers, thin porridge, or coffee. A meal may even seem light and healthy, yet still offer very little material for the night's repair. Today, I simply look at the center of my plate and ask an honest question. Where is the protein? I don't count grams every day, because the one who should guide the right amounts according to your weight, your kidneys, and your appetite is your doctor or your nutritionist. I just make sure there's a visible and adequate source there. And here I must give you 2 honest warnings, because wisdom without care becomes recklessness. The first is about the sardine, which is one of the options I most respect, because it tends to be cheaper than expensive fish and still offers good fats. When I buy it in a can, I watch the salt, and when I need to, I drain off the excess liquid. And I won't pretend everyone likes the smell. My kitchen has already looked like a fisherman's port at 7 at night, but tomato, onion, lemon, and herbs help a lot to tame that. The second warning is more serious. Whoever has kidney disease needs to talk to the doctor before increasing protein, whether from meat, beans, or dairy, because, depending on the stage, the needs change a great deal. And more protein is not automatically better. The right amount is the one that helps without overloading a condition that already exists. And there's one last detail that nearly made me give up at the start. Protein without movement doesn't do the whole job on its own. The bricks may be stacked in the yard, but the crew needs to know where to build. Walking inside the house, rising safely from the chair, doing the exercises your doctor approves, all of this sends the body the signal that those muscles are still needed. And if this first part has already made you look at your dinner with new eyes, get ready, because the second part is about a group of foods that many elderly people have come to fear without any need. Don't go anywhere. The second part of my dinner is a combination that many elderly people these days have come to fear without any need at all. Beans with a small portion of rice, or of potato, cassava, squash, or sweet potato. And I must tell you, with the serenity of my years, that carbohydrate is not a forbidden word. It is not a villain. The problem almost never lies in the food itself. It usually lies in the exaggerated amount, in the type, in the lack of balance on the plate, or in a specific health condition of each person. Let me show you how I do it, because the order of things matters. I don't fill the plate with rice and toss 3 little grains of beans on top, as many people do. I do exactly the opposite. I use a moderate portion of rice and give value to the beans, the lentils, or another legume, which take the leading role. Then I add the protein and the vegetables, because beans, that humble food, offer fiber, minerals, energy, and even a good plant protein. And when they combine with rice, they form a traditional, cheap, and wise meal, the kind that sustained entire generations with dignity. And I learned this the hard way, so let me confess my mistake to you, so that you don't repeat it. After that scare in the kitchen, I got frightened and cut out almost everything. I cut out the bread, the rice, the potato, almost every food that had carbohydrate. I thought I was being disciplined, strong, correct, but within a few weeks I found myself with much less energy, dragging my feet. And I began to skip my walks because I simply no longer had the disposition for them. It was a precious lesson I carry to this day. Removing a food does not automatically improve the whole of your diet. Sometimes it does the opposite. It collapses the entire balance. For many people, especially for us, the older ones, a little carbohydrated dinner helps precisely to keep the meal from becoming too small and poor. And look what a silent danger. The elderly person who eats too little can go on losing weight and muscle mass without even noticing, thinking everything is fine. Excessive lightness at this stage of life is not a virtue. It is a risk. But I would not be honest with you if I didn't give the necessary warnings, because every body carries its own story. Whoever has diabetes needs to watch the glucose and follow professional guidance with extra attention. Rice, potato, cassava, and fruits can, yes, be part of the diet, but the amount, the combination, and each person's medication matter a great deal. And pay attention to this, because it's serious. A dangerous drop in glucose is not a victory. It is not a sign that you're doing well. If you use insulin or medicines that can lower the sugar too much, any big change in your dinner should be discussed beforehand with the professional who follows your treatment. Cold sweat, trembling, confusion, and intense weakness, and an unusual drowsiness can be signs of low glucose, and you should not treat this as simple tiredness. Listen to your body, and when in doubt, seek help. The wisdom I speak of is never about ignoring medicine. It is about walking hand in hand with it. And let me leave you with a thought about the place of carbohydrate on the plate, because it sums up well the philosophy of this whole dinner. On my plate, the carbohydrate is not the owner of the house, the one that takes up everything and rules over everything. It is only part of the work crew, an important member, but one that serves the others. Its function is to provide the energy so that the other materials, like the protein and the minerals, can be well used by the body in that night's repair. Without energy, the workers cannot raise the structure, even with the bricks at hand. It's all a matter of harmony, of each thing in its rightful place and in its rightful measure, which is, deep down, a teaching that runs through all of life, and not only the plate. The excess of one unbalances the whole. The lack of another weakens everything. And if the second part taught you about this balance, get ready, because the third part brings color, lightness, and a market secret that saves your money without sacrificing your health. So stay with me. The third part of my plate is made up of the vegetables and the greens, almost always well cooked. I like squash, carrot, chayote, broccoli, kale, zucchini, green beans, and beet. But I don't put them all at once. That would be excess and waste. I choose only one or two according to what's freshest and cheapest that week. And here, I'm going to teach you a small secret I learned at the market over many years that saves good money. When I arrive at the stand, I ask the seller a simple question: what's good today? And the seller, who knows his own merchandise, almost always can tell me which food arrived best and is costing the least that day. Because, you see, many people associate healthy eating with expensive plates, with imported seeds bearing difficult names, with products in elegant packaging. And I, at 91, can tell you with all tranquility, squash doesn't need to speak English nor come in a pretty box to be nutritious. Humility also nourishes. And why are these vegetables and greens so important on the plate of one who's already of a certain age? Because they provide fiber and a variety of nutrients that take part in the good functioning of the whole body, from the intestines to the skin. And there's a practical advantage I love. They help make the meal more voluminous and satisfying, without your having to rely only on rice or meat to feel fed. I prefer to cook them until they're soft, but without falling completely apart, keeping a bit of texture. And here's a piece of advice from one who knows, for those who use dentures, have difficulty chewing, or have little appetite. Well-cooked vegetables tend to be far more comfortable and inviting than an enormous bowl of raw salad, which often intimidates and ends up left on the plate. Cooking is a form of kindness to one's own body. Once it's ready, I usually add a thin little drizzle of olive oil when it fits the month's budget. And when olive oil is expensive, I simply reduce the amount, without any drama, because I don't need to turn every vegetable into a pool of olive oil. It's part of a balanced diet, but it remains concentrated in calories, so, once again, balance is what rules. And I must tell you about one of my stumbles with humor, because wisdom also is born of small failures. At the start of this re-education of mine, kale at night left me terribly bloated, uncomfortable, disturbing my sleep, and I nearly gave up on it, thinking my body simply no longer accepted it. But instead of giving up, I adjusted. I reduced the portion, cooked it better, with more patience, and tested other lighter vegetables on the days when my stomach asked for calm. Because there is no medal at all for eating something that makes you spend the whole night uncomfortable, tossing in bed. Wisdom lies in listening to the body and adjusting, not in stubbornly forcing oneself. Being healthy is not about suffering. It's about finding what truly makes you well. And here comes an important warning that I cannot fail to give. Whoever has digestive problems, whoever uses anticoagulant medicines, those that thin the blood, or whoever received some specific restriction from the doctor needs to talk to him before changing habits with the greens. Notice that I choose my words carefully here. Greens rich in vitamin K, like the dark leafy ones, are not necessarily forbidden for those who use certain anticoagulants, contrary to what many think. But regularity in consumption and medical follow-up can be very important to keep the medicine working properly. So, please, and I repeat this from the heart, never change a medicine on your own, and never drastically change your diet without telling the one who cares for you. The information I give you here is a light for the path, but the one who holds your hand on the road is your doctor. And now, before I show you the fourth part, I want to ask you an honest question. One of those we need to ask ourselves from time to time. So don't go anywhere, because this question may change your nights. Here is my honest question, and I want you to answer it for yourself. With sincerity, do you usually dine for real, seated, with attention, or do you just nibble on something while watching television? I used to do exactly that, so I judge no one. I would eat 2 crackers, then a piece of bread, then go look for another little something an hour later. And by the end of the night, I had consumed several loose foods, but had not made a single organized and nutritious meal. That's when I understood that the fourth part of my dinner is not in fact a specific food. It is something subtler and equally powerful. It is the adequate portion and the right time. I try to dine between 2 and 3 hours before lying down. Not because there's a magic clock, but because a very large meal near bedtime can worsen reflux, discomfort, and sleep quality for many people. But note, I also don't go to bed hungry, because hunger too steals sleep. It's the balance, as always. And let me tell you how I organize the amount, because it's of a simplicity that deceives. My dinner fits on a common plate. I don't use a party platter, overflowing with food, nor a little coffee saucer, tiny and insufficient. A common plate, in the right measure. And I eat slowly, calmly, resting the utensils on the table now and then, between one bite and another. That simple gesture of slowing down lets me notice whether I'm still truly hungry, or whether I'm just used to continuing to eat out of habit, without need. This part seems silly, almost too small to speak of, but I assure you it changed my nights profoundly. Eating with presence, with full attention to each bite, is an ancient teaching that serves both the soul and the body. Hurry disturbs digestion and deceives fullness. Calm, on the contrary, nourishes in every sense. And there's the matter of liquids, which deserves special attention at night. When I used to dine very late, drink several glasses of liquid, and lie down right after, I would wake repeatedly during the early hours to go to the bathroom. And that's when a dangerous fear was born, the fear of walking in the dark, with my legs still drowsy. So I began to concentrate more of my water during the morning and the afternoon, keeping only small amounts at night, according to my thirst and my doctor's guidance. But pay close attention, because this does not serve everyone in the same way, and I don't want you to harm yourself. People with kidney disease, heart failure, low blood pressure, who use diuretics, or who have a risk of dehydration need individual guidance given by the doctor. Do not reduce your liquids excessively on your own, ever. Very dark urine, dizziness, dry mouth, confusion, or weakness can be signs of dehydration, and that, too, is dangerous. And, on the other hand, if you wake many times to urinate, don't automatically accept this as just a thing of age and leave it at that. This habit of getting up 5 or 6 times a night deserves to be evaluated by a doctor, because it can be linked to medicines, to the prostate, to diabetes, to sleep changes, to an infection, or to heart matters, and many of these things have a solution. Don't suffer in silence out of pride. And since we spoke of walking in the dark, let me give you a piece of advice that can literally save your life. Turn on a light. Pride illuminates no hallway. A small lamp on the path to the bathroom, a firm, non-slip slipper on your feet, and a route free of loose rugs can prevent a serious fall, the kind that changes everything in a fraction of a second. Adapting the home isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of wisdom and of self-love. And if this fourth part made you rethink your nights, get ready, because the fifth part is tiny, almost a detail, but it may be precisely what completes a dinner that fell short. So stay with me, because we're now reaching the most important part of all. The fifth part of my dinner seems small, but it can complete, with care, a meal that fell short. When I dine early and feel a little hunger later, before sleeping, I make a conscious choice. Instead of attacking the crackers or the sweets in the cupboard, I choose a small evening snack with a bit of protein. Sometimes I eat a little plain yogurt without excess sugar. On other nights, I drink a warm milk when it sits well in my stomach and calms me for sleep. I can also eat a small portion of papaya with yogurt or with a bit of oats. And now and then I add a spoonful of chia or flax seed, but note well, I don't turn the seeds into a medicine or a miracle. They're only a humble complement. And I must make clear that this snack is not obligatory for anyone. It exists only for the days when dinner was small, when the interval until breakfast will be very long, or when the appetite asks for something more. It's a punctual kindness, not a rigid rule. And here I must undo a fear that imprisons many people. Many people hear out there that eating at night always makes you gain weight and come to fear any food after a certain hour, as if food turned into poison at nightfall. But context is everything. A person who ate well throughout the whole day perhaps doesn't need any snack, and that's fine. Yet another person with little appetite, low weight, or a risk of losing muscle may even receive a professional's guidance to include something nutritious before sleeping. See how there is no single rule for everyone. The true mistake, the one that really harms, is to swap a planned meal for a messy sequence of biscuits, sweets, salty snacks, and sugary drinks throughout the night. Plain yogurt, for example, can offer protein and calcium, important in a complete diet. But whoever has lactose intolerance, milk allergy, or kidney disease needs to adapt, swapping it for a boiled egg, some leftover shredded chicken, or another food indicated by their trusted professional. And before I close the 5 parts, I must tell you about an invisible signal without which all this food loses half its strength: movement. Remember the image of the house being repaired? Well, the materials may all be there, stacked, but there's still the signal that tells the body, this house is still being used, preserve it. And that signal is movement. That's why, before dinner, I do a few minutes of gentle movement. On good days, I walk in the yard or on the sidewalk, feeling the air. On rainy days, I walk inside the house itself, from one room to another, and I sit and rise from a firm chair a few times in a row, always with a support nearby, for safety. I don't do this until my legs tremble from exhaustion. Because excessive exercise is not better for an elderly body, the goal is to stimulate the house, and not to destroy it. Measure, as in everything in life, is the secret. But I have to be honest about the limits and the dangers, because your safety comes before everything. If you've been still for a long time, feel dizziness, have heart problems, strong joint pains, suffered a recent fall, or have difficulty with balance, ask a professional for guidance before starting any exercise. And mark this well: chest pain, intense shortness of breath, a fainting spell, or a sudden weakness do not mean the exercise is working or kicking in. They mean you should stop immediately and seek care. And there's a signal that demands absolute urgency, a sudden weakness on one side of the body. Slurred speech, a crooked face, or sudden confusion can indicate a stroke, and in that case the help needs to be immediate. Every minute counts. Being independent, my dear, never means pretending the risks don't exist. It means knowing them, respecting them, and acting with wisdom. And now that I've shown you the 5 parts of my plate and the movement, the most important moment of our whole conversation has arrived. That secret I told you did not fit inside the pot. So, for nothing in this world, don't go anywhere. The moment I've been promising since the very beginning has arrived, the secret that did not fit inside the pot, and that, in truth, was what truly saved me. Because after that night when the cup fell, I confess that I became too cautious, almost a prisoner of fear. I began to avoid leaving the house. I stopped going to the market when it was crowded, afraid of bumps and falls. I would refuse invitations because I didn't want anyone to notice my insecurity, my fragility. I was preserving my body, it's true, but at the same time, without noticing. I was diminishing my life, shrinking my world day after day. The food had improved my energy, the movement had strengthened my confidence, but even so there were mornings when I simply saw no reason to make the effort to get up. My wife had already departed. My children had their own homes and their own lives. I told myself I didn't want to bother anyone, but the bare truth, the one that hurt, is that I was beginning to believe that no one in this world needed me anymore. It was a neighbor, a lady named Clea, who changed everything and has no idea of the size of what she did. One afternoon she knocked at my gate holding an old pot and asked me for help fixing the wooden handle which was loose. For many years of my life I worked with tools, and although my hands no longer have the same firmness as before, they still recognize a loose screw from afar. So I sat in my old workshop out back, examined the pot carefully, and replaced the part. When I finished and gave it back to her, Clea broke into a smile and said a simple sentence that stayed engraved in me forever. "I knew you'd figure it out." That sentence went right through my chest. And it wasn't because of the fixed pot, you see. It was because, after so long feeling useless, someone still expected me to know how to do something. Someone still believed in my ability. In that instant, a small flame that was nearly out began to burn again inside me. And it was as if a current formed from there. The following week, Clea brought me a squash from the market as a gift. I in return prepared a bean soup with chicken and gave half the pot back to her. Then, one of my grandsons asked me to teach him to sharpen a tool. Next, another neighbor began to walk with me to the end of the street every afternoon. And, suddenly, my meals stopped being merely a fuel to survive one more day. They gained a greater purpose. I needed to have energy to open the workshop in the morning. I needed to sleep well because someone might show up the next day needing me. I needed to keep myself firm and strong, because there were still tasks in this world that only my hands knew how to do in that specific way. Notice the current. Having a reason to get up made me keep a routine. The routine encouraged me to move. The movement improved my appetite. The appetite made me eat better. And the better food gave me material for the repair and the recovery. That is the current of life I nearly lost completely. And here's the deepest truth my 91 years have taught me. And I must be very honest with you about it, without dressing it up. Purpose does not cure disease. Feeling needed does not replace medicine. Faith, friendship, and hope do not, by magic, make a broken bone recover. I don't offer you a fantasy. But having a reason to get up in the morning can help a person keep a routine, and the routine sustains all the rest. I spent my whole life thinking that independence meant never needing anyone, a solitary pride. Today I understand it in another way, wiser and softer. True independence is being able to take part in life. It's receiving help when you need it, without handing over all the decisions. It's continuing to contribute, even in a smaller way than before. It's realizing that you still have something to teach, to prepare, to fix, to listen to, or to offer someone. My key remained on the table, beside the new cup I bought to replace the one that broke. But it stopped representing only the right to close the door and isolate myself from the world. It came to represent, above all, the freedom to open it. And so we come to the end of our conversation this evening, and my heart is full of gratitude for your having sat here with me with such patience. Let me organize in your memory, with care, everything we talked about, so you can carry it clearly. Protein provides part of the building material for your muscles. Beans and adequate portions of carbohydrate help sustain your energy. The vegetables, the greens, and a thin little drizzle of good fat complete the meal with nutrients and comfort. The dinner time, the care with liquids, and the safety of your home protect your sleep and reduce the risks of a fall. And movement is the signal that shows the body where it still needs to invest its strength. But, above all of this, remember the greater current. The habits guard the body, but having a purpose, feeling needed by someone, is what guards the soul and gives reason to all the rest. You don't need to change everything tomorrow, all at once, because true life isn't built that way. Choose a single safe change to begin. Perhaps adding an egg to tomorrow's dinner. Perhaps swapping the night's crackers for a simple meal of beans, vegetables, and chicken. Perhaps just moving your dinner time a little earlier, one step at a time. And now, with all the care of this old heart, I ask of you 3 small gestures that help a lot and cost nothing. The first, tell me in the comments your age, what city, state, or country you're watching me from, and what food usually is part of your dinner, because I read each answer to understand the conversations our community most needs. The second, comment the word independence down below as a small vow that you're going to begin caring for yours, one common choice at a time. And the third, which is the most beautiful of all, pick up your phone now and share this video with someone you love who also dines alone or who carries in their chest that silent fear of losing their autonomy. Because sharing an honest conversation is one of the most beautiful ways of caring for those we love. If these words touched your heart, leave your like, so this conversation may reach more people who are aging with doubts and sometimes with fear of speaking about them. And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next meetings. Now, I'm going to turn off the kitchen light, put the key in my pocket, and check the gate one more time, as I do every night. Because the independent life is rarely sustained by a great miracle. Almost always, it is built silently. One meal, one step, and one open door at a time. And remember, always, this wisdom walks hand in hand with your doctor's care. A big hug, much peace, and I'll be waiting for you at our next meeting.